Today, I'm at the 2024 Motorcycle Show to see what this year has in store for the industry. I heard Ducati is in here and a few other brands, but we're still gonna check out what they have to show. Let me show you around. Okay, so the first exhibit that we went to was the Suzuki area. They had a lot of new bikes there, like this GSX8R, or as I call it, the GX8er, which is a new competitor to something like the Yamaha R7. And in this bike, we see a full fairing sports style bike with things like Nissan brakes and this beautiful pearl ignite yellow color. The overall seating position seemed pretty comfortable as well as like sporty. And it did come in a couple different cool colors. I really liked the gray with the red wheels, or also the blue. And the blue, to me, I just have a soft spot for blue bikes, and noticed it had sort of like a gray wheel to it. It does need a tidy tail kit. However, I do like that you can see a little bit of that exposed frame. It sort of reminds me of my old Suzuki SV650, where the frame sort of like added as like an accent to the bike. It does have the double stacked headlights, which is sort of trending right now. And I'm sure gives you really good styling for nighttime riding. And also all the newest sort of features, like this TFT display that is 5 inches, the mode selector switch on the left, all of it is the latest and greatest. And it even comes in a naked version called the 8S. I did notice that the wheels were matching paint, so it kind of reminds me of like the MT-07, and it's, you know, just a top fairing and nothing else, but you can add some touring type bags and things like that to have a little bit more of an upright standard street motorcycle. It looks terrible with that rear tail, but I'm sure most owners are going to be able to buy that Eliminator kit. The favorite in the Suzuki lineup was the new GSX1000GT. So really similar to the GSX1000, except for now it comes full fairing. And this bike has the old 1000cc engine from like that 2005 era of super sport bikes. And even better, you can use it as more of like a touring bike. So you can add those hard bags on this GT model, and it comes in a couple different cool colors as well. So this would be a good bike for decent power, as well as that long trip ability where you can really road trip on this and not sacrifice things like comfort or riding position and things like that. I did have a quick chance to sit on the new Gixxer 1000. Definitely a very aggressive riding position, and also the exhaust seemed a little in the way, but it was really cool to be able to sit on it. There was only one, and there wasn't a lot of hype around it other than people just want to sit on it. Suzuki did have this enduro thumper style bike, which is really cool to me. I recently rode a BMW version of this same style of bike, and the turning radius and just usability was really cool. It also had the Supermoto tires, so just really cool to have a bike like this in the lineup. I'm not gonna buy one of these by any means, but it definitely has, you know, the right rider for it, and it also keeps that retro style dashboard. Now over to Triumph. So Triumph is a brand that has a soft spot in my heart, especially the new Scramblers. And there was a Scrambler that I didn't even know existed, and that was this 1200 XE, which is like a taller off-road type vehicle with those high exhausts, but also the higher suspension, and just a little bit more like posture-wise upright style of bike. It definitely would be more usable for like true off-road type stuff, where the classic Scrambler is a little bit lower to the ground, and also a little bit more universally stylish, where it wouldn't look out of place sitting beside a cafe in downtown Toronto as you sip your morning espresso. Pretty cool that it still has the same shape of display, although it has new technology features. And then we have the new Daytona. So the Daytona was one of the bikes that caught my attention to riding in the first place, back with the 675. Pretty cool to see the 660 here. I didn't expect to see it here at the motorcycle show, but I did get to kind of sit on it, and there was, you know, a couple takeaways from it, like the new display with the 4-arrow controller, so you can sort of customize what you see there. It doesn't look quite as aggressive as previous generation Daytonas, like the 675s, but still some nice updates with the LEDs, etc. The Street Triple RS. So the 765 replaced the 675. I used to have a 675. I always liked how the bike felt really light and upright, but still had that amazing sound to that triple engine, and still be able to feel like you want to do wheelies and sort of hoon through the city streets. And that's what was my favorite thing about my 675, was I could just throw it into corners and it would always do what I said. And then we have the classic Triumphs like the Speed Twin, or one of my favorites coming up in a moment. But I was reminded quickly by the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, which is sort of a cool suited ride every year in November for the Movember fundraising. Maybe this year I'll actually get to go. However, this was my favorite bike in the entire bike show, and it is the Triumph Thruxton FE. And the FE stands for Final Edition, meaning they're not gonna make this bike much longer. And as much as I hate to say it, I totally get why. And a big reason why is it's a whole lot of money for a bike that is sort of a piece of artwork, meaning you don't look at this bike and say, oh, I wanna ride this through a storm or through a dirt road. You look at this and you say, I wanna look at this every day in a museum. If I had some extra cash sitting around, I'd be all over this Thruxton. In fact, some of the other spectators that I was chatting to said the same thing, that it is such a beautiful motorcycle with a great attention to detail. However, all of us would feel bad getting our dirty mitts all over this. And even the gauge cluster just had such a retro, cool, artistic look to it. So definitely my favorite bike in the entire bike show, and that is the Triumph Thruxton. Okay, next on the show was Yamaha, and this is another favorite brand of mine. I always liked the engines and the sounds that they make, along with the fact that it's reliable. The R1M is a bike I've only ever seen on the internet, so super pumped to see it here at the show. It's a big money ticket item and is pretty much full carbon fiber. That's always been the thing with the R1M, is it's decorated in real carbon fiber to make it super light, and of course shows the price tag itself. The bike itself did feel light, however, you know, it's kind of hard to tell when I was just rocking it back and forth on the showroom floor. And based on all the belt marks that I could see on it, everybody else was doing the exact same thing, because it's so rare to see this bike in the wild. I was surprised that the exhaust wasn't cooler looking, but I guess most people probably swap that out as soon as they get it. The XXR900 showed a little bit of personality. This is a bike that comes in many shapes and sizes and customization. It's kind of Yamaha's version of the modern retro bike. Seating position was good, had some cool accessories, things like that. Over to the MT10. My friend has an MT10 and I've been on road trips with it. It's kind of like, in my opinion, the dad bike in the MT lineup. Kind of like a sport touring naked bike that you can add some accessories like bags and windshields to, and have that 1000cc leader bike without the 1000cc insurance and things like that. Now, the MT07 is the bike that if you're ever on a group ride with it, it's the guy probably doing wheelies and stuff like that, and for good reason. This could be a beginner bike for someone that wants to have something that they're not gonna have to worry about growing out of anytime soon. In fact, you can just leave this bike in your garage and have it as like your fun bike for many years to come. Over to Honda, which was my actual first motorcycle that I ever owned, was the Honda Rebel, and that's why I have a soft spot for this. Plus, Itchy Boots rides a Honda, and I think that her YouTube channel is super cool. It was really cool to see this little baby. This is like a little moped that they had, 125cc. And of course, some classics like the CBR 600R, 4-cylinder, sort of mid-weight sport bike. Good insurance, good power, good sound, things like that. And then of course, the naked version, the CB600, which you can tell by those front exhaust pipes. One of the main focal points is the fact that it's a 4-cylinder. And this is an engine that you can open up a little bit more after owning it for a couple of years. You can put a tune on it, get a little bit more ponies out of it. Be careful, because sometimes you can make these a little too fast. But it is a naked sport bike, so insurance isn't too bad in Canada for stuff like this, and it's reliable, which is great. And then the Honda Rebel, which was my actual first motorcycle when I was 16 years old. This one is bigger and a little bit nicer looking and cooler looking than my Rebel from back in the day. Just like I remember, the seating position, super low center of gravity, and some modern touches. Now this bike surprised me more than anything else. This is the SCL 500 customized. If I were to pick up a bike today, this would be on my short list for sure. Really cool styling, like the knobby tires, the exhaust that's mounted high, And also the really cool leather custom seat that was on it that gave me that little retro off-road look. But I thought it was really cool that the whole exhaust had that heat shielding wrap around it as well. Kind of reminded me of like this cool little army bike that you could ride on-road, off-road, and still have some digital display and modern amenities. Even the handlebars had, or the little grips were even leather, which I thought was pretty cool too. Zero. This is a brand that I know zero about. But the people in this booth were pretty helpful and it was cool to learn a little bit about them. These bikes are all zero emissions, meaning they are electric. And they have a couple different models that, again, I didn't know much about, but I did throw a leg over some of them. Things like this one, where it's kind of like that off-road touring bike. Then we also had the sport bike, which has a similar engine, or I guess it's not really an engine, a similar motor, but in more of a sport bike styling. And because of the fact that there's no gas tank, there is like some cool, amenities and, storage spaces and stuff like that. The touring bike was a little strange to me, but I had to check it out. Sitting on it, it felt pretty light. I kept reaching for the clutch, which was kind of funny, and checking out the charging times and stuff like that. Over to Aprilia. This is a brand that I really considered when shopping for my Ducati. I think the engines that they make is next level. These are some really great on-road, off-road track bikes, including some really high-ticket items over in this booth. And I don't actually know anybody that owns an Aprilia, so it's nice to actually be able to sit on one, check out everything from like their mid-range to their high-range racing style sport bikes, including this RSV that was unbelievable. The details alone show you that this bike is made for the speed, everything from the canards to the aero that the bike has. What's really made me not do an Aprilia was the styling. I thought Ducati had a better style, even though Aprilia's engines probably are just as good. And speaking of Ducati, we did get a chance to go over to a Ducati section, and of course, the first thing I looked for was some new hoodies and streetwear, which I couldn't find any that fit, but that's okay. They had a Panigale V4, which is the bigger brother to my V2. Super, super nice bike. It is the 4-cylinder, more horsepower, has those canards, a little bit more aggressive venting and things like that. I definitely will upgrade to one of these eventually once my insurance goes down, because this one does have huge insurance, because it's just this angry beast of a bike, and it's really easy to see why. I did not get a chance to put my leg over it, but I've sat on them before, and they are super, super cool. Okay, so there you have it, the 2024 motorcycle show. We saw not all exhibits, but some big ones. A lot of retro styling, which is super cool, but with some modern amenities, I guess you could say, in the lineups. It was still great to be able to check out some of the other brands.